But the construct and the style of it was sort of both surreal and hyper realistic, which I felt was reflective of the type of sort of reality breaking trauma that comes from war, especially within the setting in Ukraine. This was a war that came upon people in which, from what I recall, many people there did not think a war was about to happen. And I think that the level of shock and dissonance from having your life destroyed and turning your home country into a war zone, it creates a very strange emotional feeling that the piece really captured quite well. There was a lot of images of working on the anti-tank constructs and of the structural art pieces, and I thought there was a really interesting juxtaposition between those two things, and a lot of imagery through the crosses and counterbalanced with the working on the structures themselves. I thought it created a very, I thought, sort of grounded in material experience of the war, and that made it feel like it was both happening from the past, some kind of war footage of World War II, and also on the reality that is happening currently. I thought it had a very interesting sort of big picture idea about humanity in the face of war, and sort of the loss of a certain sense of soul during these type of conflicts. And I thought the piece worked well in capturing that, especially given the style. I think it was very minimal speaking, and I think a lot of the images were used for the emotional effect. So I thought it was a very well done piece and a very impactful piece. And
very unique style with this documentary, because when it starts, it feels like you're watching a war film. But this is real life. This is a present day war. We see the destruction of the war, and we are aware this is a result of the conflict in the Ukraine and the war efforts of the people here. We're aware of this, because it gives little clues as far as the flag that we see, but also the radio that is playing in the beginning is outlining everything that's happening. There isn't much speaking in this documentary at all, but we still have a very clear picture on everything that's taking place. The meticulous art of creating these sculptures with this radio accounting these terrors of war is such an interesting contrast. The only speaking that takes place in this is that the radio, you have prayers and you have religious music. There's no talking heads, interviews, there's no interaction as far as it. It's just these men doing this meticulous work to build these religious monuments, which serve dual purposes. These are revering the religious, saints and things like that, but they're also preventative for tanks, and similar to the barriers that we saw in Open the Shot. So when we see that ending shot where other crosses are meticulously placed and these statues and sculptures are meticulously placed just so, it kind of jolts you back to the beginning when we would see all the tank barriers, which all look like small crosses. And the opening quote really, really sets the scene for everything. The language of war is spoken by everyone, and every bayonet, no matter what it is, counts. It's such a beautiful and powerful summary.
They did such incredible things with the footage and the music underlying it. I love how we start off with the holy music, and on screen we see these anti-tank obstacles, and then we move on to the making of these beautiful sculptures, and of course that is when we hear the news about Ukraine and Russia, and we have the war radio sounds underlying this construction of these beautiful holy sculptures. And then we have the sound effects of the air raid sirens underlying these sculptures and these religious symbols and artworks. So I thought that was really cool, just showing how these sculptors are using their skills for the war and sort of being retrained, but through it all, they still have these skills and this underlying purpose and mission, I would like to say. So yeah, just the juxtaposition of these two wildly different missions, I thought was really beautiful and really cool to see. And there's something very tragic about it as well.
From beginning to end, this film really held your attention, especially that opening sequence with the music and that choir and the visual images that were being presented. It was so powerful. I got chills. It was really, really awesome. I thought it was fascinating watching them make the statues, and very clever to change the radio station from the music to the radio broadcast so that you could hear what was going on with the war in Ukraine and what Putin was doing and all of that. The statues were amazing, the things that they did.
You got enough between the kind of air raid warnings and then, just hearing the kind of, radio or the news in the background that lended enough context to the situation. But then, you really didn't need more than that. You just had to sit back and watch, and a big part of that is watching, this sculptor and this artist's work, and, that's lovely, I think. And then, at the very, very end, as they're, placing the statues, you kind of, get a better picture of it. And it's so beautiful. And to really prioritize making art, making something that really means something to not just yourself, but to a community, to a place that you can give back to in such a, turbulent time, in a time when you have air raids going on, you have, clearly there's some instability going on, and I think that that's so lovely and so wonderful, and deserves to be seen, deserves to be heard.
This is an interesting exploring of the efforts to keep religious rituals alive in the midst of a very aggressive and deadly armed conflict. They give us these amazing close-ups into the crafting of the statues and the background situation of an invaded country and a terrified population fighting back, and also trying to go about their lives as best as possible. It is a very important social commentary, and I think they make a great job with very little dialogues, but just so poetic.